You know, I think about it every day. I think about what happened every day. And I try to rationalize it in my mind, that it could have been something else. But it wasn't. My name is Harold Thompson. I live in Coquille, Oregon. I've lived here approximately 8 years. I met Cody about 6 years ago, and he's been working for me as my foreman since then.
Hi, my name's Cody. I moved here to Oregon from Utah with my family. I moved here in 2016, and as we made our way down the coast to find where we wanted to live at, I ran into Harold through job searches, and he offered me employment with him. And ever since then, I've just been his #1 guy working alongside him, and he's become a good personal friend that's always watched out and been there for me.
This whole experience happened at approximately 10:15 on November 2nd, the first week in November 2021.
With me, starting off in the hometown I grew up in Cache County, Utah, we had lots of reports and actual film crews that would come and visit the area, and for the longest time I never believed it until we started getting large activity from larger sources of people that had belief in this creature. And I've seen other things, but nothing quite like what you call Bigfoot. It's always been way off in the distance, a little speck, something that has no detail, but until the day that we saw this thing as close and as detailed as we did, it's just solidified the fact of that these things are out there and they are real.
What I thought about Bigfoot before I saw this was they never found a body. They never actually found one. I mean, people said they saw it. Some of the films I saw, I didn't really believe in them because they looked kind of like suits. But once I saw this, I have an open mind to anything. I mean, I wasn't saying that I didn't believe in Bigfoot, but I just hadn't seen one. And unless you actually experience it yourself, there's some things you don't believe in. But when I saw this, that's when I knew that they are definitely out there.
Honestly, they start off in an early age. I had a grandfather who was the father of my mother, and he was passing away in a hospital. And this was back in the 90s, early 90s. There wasn't cell phones or any way to really talk to someone really quick without calling them on the phone. And one day she's doing laundry in the home, and at the end of her hallway, she noticed her dad standing there. Well, she knew very well that he was in the hospital struggling with his health, pretty much on the verge of death. But as she watched him, she said she didn't feel the slightest bit of anxiety or fear or worry. She just had this overwhelming peace and calm wash over her, and she knew then that her father had just passed away in the hospital. And my mother was born and raised in the Mormon LDS religion. She's not one to just throw out a ghost story whenever she thinks she's seen one. From that on, when my mom admitted to seeing someone on the other side, it was hard to not just follow suit and just have that belief, because why not believe in it? And it's better to keep an open mind and understand that there are things that just cannot be explained, measured, or even understood with what we know right now.
So as far as paranormal and stuff like that, I've never had any experiences like that. I didn't really believe in them. I'm not sure if I believe in them now, because I don't know if this was paranormal, what I saw. I don't know really what it was, but I know there's things out there that we don't know about now, for sure. And there's things out there that people can't even imagine what they can do from what we saw. So that really opened up my mind a lot. You know, once you see something, no matter how hardcore you are on not believing something, I'd rather believe my eyes than what I was taught in a book, is basically what it gets down to. If I see it, if I was taught my whole life those don't exist, and then I saw one, I would have to go with what I saw. I have never heard anybody talk about a Bigfoot around here, seeing one or anything. But since our sighting, we started investigating, and approximately 2 weeks before we had our sighting, my wife knows a doctor. She's retired from the hospital. She worked there 20 years. And there was a doctor that comes out here on Saturdays and reads books. And she happened to stop by and talk to him. And this is before our sighting. And he swears to her that he saw Bigfoot in the park down there about 2.5 weeks before we had our sighting. And then after I had our sighting, I also looked it up on the internet, and I found that there have been several sightings around here, especially on Moon Creek. There's been a couple of actual stories of people that wrote on the internet about their experience with a Bigfoot near Moon Creek. And that's just about the list of it. I wasn't really into it at all until I saw this thing. And then suddenly I wanted to know everything about it. Like, what do people know? Has anybody seen what I've seen? You know, that's what was really curious to me.
Other than me explaining what happened back in Utah with other large companies that came by claiming to be hunting for Bigfoot, I've really never had anything else other than my own personal belief about it. As far as anybody around me, my peers, my family, I'm truly the only one of my personal connections that would give this thing a chance of calling it real.
It was a little bit different because me and Cody, the day it happened, we usually leave here, if he comes up here and helps me load, we usually leave here by 7:30. We're at the job by 8:30. But this day we had a day off because we had a big appointment. We had to go out and look at a big job and give him an estimate. And we had to be there about 11 to 11:30. So we left here at about 10 o'clock in the morning. And I wasn't driving that day. Ask Cody, I do all the driving. He never drives. But I had hurt my leg, my knee the day before, so he had to drive. So it was just like any other morning, except it was a little bit later, and he was driving. The day it happened, it was approximately November 2nd. It was 10:15 in the morning when we actually had the sighting. The sun was at our back. It was a clear, sunny day. The object was directly in the sun. The sun was at our back, so we have a very good vision of it because the sun was coming right down on it. And so Cody was driving. We come around the corner, and as soon as we came around the corner, I noticed what I had thought was a elk standing on its back legs right on the corner, right on the edge of the pavement, looking, a side view of it, looking towards the bushes. That's what I thought I saw at that second. So I looked over at Cody and I said, Cody, I noticed Cody was looking at the instruments of the truck because he was seeing how much fuel we had and stuff. And I said, Cody, there's something in the road. By the time I said that and Cody looked up, it was now a giant ape. Just in that amount of time, it was a different color fur. It was hair now. It was long hair, approximately 9 to 10 feet tall. Very big chest, the biggest legs I've ever seen in my life. Big legs, huge legs. And that's when I looked at Cody, and Cody looked at me, and we're like, oh my God, and our mouths were both dropped just looking at this thing. So we didn't say a word, we just kept driving right towards it, getting closer and closer. As we were getting closer, we noted it started shrinking down. I don't know how else to explain it. It just got smaller, until it was an orangutan size, what looked to me like an orangutan in a fetal position. Now it's squatted down in a fetal position, an orange orangutan, a very orange, bright fur because the sun was at our back, shining right on it, really bright. Then it turned orange. Within a split second, it turned into an orange sphere, a round orange sphere that looked like the sun, the same color as the sun. Hard to even look at it, very bright. One more second passed, we're getting closer and closer. Now we might be 30 yards away. It turned into a geometric square of red now and orange. Same color, looked like pure energy, turned into a geometric square, levitated off the ground approximately 3 to 3.5 feet. At this point, it just stayed like that, maybe a second, I don't know, Cody, maybe longer. And then it just shot straight across, off the road, across the creek in a flash. And it looked really long, but I think the only reason why it looked very long at that point in tan in color was because it shot off so fast, it made it look like it was a long projectile. At that point, we were on them. We were there. We jumped out of the truck, killed the truck, left the doors open, ran over and looked and listened. And it was a real eerie feeling because there was no noise. I live out here. Right now there's noise. You can hear something. You can hear trees. If there was a creek here, you hear the creek. We didn't hear anything. It was dead silent, Couldn't see it or hear it, and we had a pretty good view for a ways. It just disappeared, in my opinion. But the first thing I did was I got down on my hands and knees and looked for hair, because this thing changed 3 different colors from fur to hair, different colored hairs. And you would think it would have to drop a hair doing that. It would lose something doing that. And I got down and looked on my hands and knees and couldn't find one hair. And that's when we both looked at each other and said, you know what, I think we better get out of here. We'll come back later. And we did go back later with the machete, looked for tracks. There was nothing. No tracks, nothing. 30 feet in, it was 10 feet tall of berry bushes. You had to hack your way in there. The trajectory it took off the road over those bushes, they were 30 feet deep, and then was the river, and they were approximately 10 to 12 feet high. And on top of those berry bushes were spider webs, all over spider webs, and none of them were disturbed. Not one of them.
Are you scared to death?
No, I was happy. I was like, I can't believe we are seeing this. It makes you happy because you're not in danger. It's not nighttime. You're not in the forest and this thing's creeping up on you and you hear it, right? I mean, that would freak me out. But this didn't freak me out. I wanted to get close to it and see it and see what else it could do, you know. I was just, I can't even explain it. I've never had that feeling in my whole life. It was like euphoria. I was like, wow, you know, that's what it was like. You know, I think about it every day. I think about what happened every day. And I try to rationalize it in my mind that it could have been something else, but it wasn't. And you know what? I'm really happy that Cody saw it too, because if he wouldn't have saw this thing, what it did, I would have second guessed. I'd be still second guessing myself today. I really would. I mean, it's hard to believe something like this. I understand that 100%, but I know what I saw. We talked about it right after. Cody, did you see this? And the main thing I was just getting ready to ask him was, Cody, did you see that levitate? I was getting ready to ask him that, and he said, it levitated. And that's when I knew he saw exactly everything I saw. Because when somebody tells you they saw something levitate, you know, and then I already knew it, I already knew he saw this. He saw, because that was the most amazing thing that I saw, besides it changing everything, is when it levitated off the ground and sat there in that square geometric figure. I mean, what can do that? Nothing. Nothing that I know of. Nothing can do anything I saw there.
I hear Harold call to me. He's like, hey, there's something up in the road. So I look up fast enough to try to avoid the object, but it was a lot farther than I had anticipated, so I had time to look at it. In that 2 seconds that he got to see it, I never saw the elk figure. I saw the beginning of the transformation as it began to change shape, become into that fetal position, and that's when the bottom of this figure that was touching the road came up off the road and met in the middle, what you would call maybe the stomach area of this thing. And this is where that geometric shape comes into play. It sat there long enough for us to see it floating there, and then as fast as it was there, it started to extend over those thorn bushes that he had explained, and it was gone like a flash.
And how tall would you say it was, Cody, when you saw it?
It definitely had to be at least 9 or 10 feet tall, but who knows how tall it was before it even realized that we were looking at this thing, and it knew we were there too. Yeah, there's an electrical pole that carries power throughout the houses out here. It was right next to the pole where you could look at the pole and see where the top of that figure was before it had started to condense and become a different object.
Yeah, and there's a yellow line on the power line that comes down to the side that even gives you a better variance, because its head was right near the top where that line was going in. That's where when I got there, I looked at it and I was like, that's tall.
Well, I didn't have the luxury to just sit there and fully look at it. I was still managing to maneuver the vehicle, drive, follow the command of hit the gas, let's see what the heck that thing is. So I'm still preoccupied while driving, keeping us on the road. In my mind, I saw basically an orangutan. It was large, orange. You could tell that its extremities were very long, longer than any proportion to a human or animal that's native to the area. And from there on, I mean, it started to change, and it became less of an animal and more of a shapeless figure, a blob even if you call it. And then it returned back to that geometric shape because it was like it had soft edges to it. There was no definitive hard line on this thing until it came up off of the road
And then
floating in its floating stage. And that's when it took a recognizable shape and then extended itself. It didn't just go like this. It almost kept extending its body, and then the rest of it followed with it.
looked like a stretch man almost. Stretch, like that. Like stretched, and then like somebody was stretching something, and you let go the other end. That's what it looked like. Well, I was not in denial because I knew what I saw, and then I had somebody else to back up what I saw that saw the same thing. So my denial was over at that point. I knew we saw something. And for about a week after that, at night, I didn't even sleep too good, to tell you the truth, because I was thinking about it all the time. Even at work, I was thinking about it, you know, in my mind, did I see that? Because you keep seeing it over and over. When you see something that you've never seen before, you keep seeing it over and over. I still see it today. Today, I you know, because you guys are here and the filming and so forth, so it's going through my mind a lot. I will never forget it. I will never forget it. It's plastered in my mind of what I saw. It really is. It's seared in my mind. I'm never going to be able to forget that. If you would have had that experience, you would never forget it either. You wouldn't. I don't tell a lot of people, because I told a couple people at first, and they kind of think you're, you know, some people don't believe in it, and they're not going to believe in it because you said that you saw it. You know, some people, they would be like me, like I was before I saw it. If somebody came up and told me this story, I probably would not believe it. But because it happened to me, I do believe it because I know what I saw. So, and that's what messes with you. You know, it messes with you even today that you saw something like that. What are the chances of us seeing something like that? That's what I always think about. 1 billion to 1, 2 billion to 1, who knows what that number is? So why us? Why did it happen then? Why did this thing let us? It could have very easily just jumped off the road. When I first spotted it, we never would have had another question about it, but instead it stayed there and let us, as we're getting closer and closer, it let us see it do all these changes. So that's what freaks me out, is why us? I mean, and I don't think anybody's ever had this experience before. Maybe now once this gets out and you guys get this documentary produced, there might be other people that step forward that had the same encounters that we had. Maybe they were alone when they saw something like this and have been second guessing themselves all this time. And now they'll know somebody else had the same experience, and maybe it'll give them some relief. And plus, everybody deserves to know that this is out there.
Honestly, I mean, no. I think we just were luck of the draw, right place, right time, as with most anything else. There's no way to premeditate or plan for something like this. I mean, it just was there. We took it all in and we just reacted in a natural way that seemed right to us.
I kind of think like that wasn't an accident. I kind of think that maybe, I don't know. So all these weird thoughts go through your mind. I'm good with animals. I feed animals every night. My wife and I feed wild animals right at our front door. Well, we take care of animals that get hurt. This was so close to my house. Maybe it knows that. Maybe it knows I would never shoot it, you know, if I had a gun. Maybe it knows this. I mean, all these things pass through your mind that, because we saw this thing. And why did we see it? Why is it here? Were we chosen to see this? I kind of think that I'm leaning towards the side of we probably were chosen. Why? I have no idea. Maybe it wanted us to know, that people to know that it has this power, that it can do this if it wants. I'm not afraid of the repercussions at all. I know what I saw, and if you don't believe it, you don't have to believe it. But at least you know that there's a story out there of something that was seen that nobody has ever seen before, and it has a lot of power. Is this something we should be afraid of in the future? I mean, why are they here? All these questions come into your mind of why this thing was here.
Ooh, I mean, to ask just one question would really limit you on how you would want to know what this thing was. I'd have to say, what was it doing there? Why there? There are neighbors in the area. There was a campground maybe 1.5 miles down the road, and then you have all these neighbors the other 1.5 miles up the road. Why pick such an area that you could risk even being seen at? I mean, unless it has no worry, no quorum with people or animals seeing it, Why pick that specific area, especially for two people to run up on it and be able to witness and actually see this thing in the flesh?
If I was going to ask one question, I would probably ask it if it's from here. That would be my question. Is it from here? Because that's what I want to know. I don't think it's from here. It could be. It could be it's been here longer than us. We don't know that. But I don't think there's something that can do that that would live on this planet. I don't. When you have that kind of power and that thing had the energy that we saw and is capable of doing the things that it can do, it seems to me like this wouldn't be the only place it would be. It has much more than that. I mean, look at us. We can just get to the moon now. In 1969, right? We got to the moon. So that was a big accomplishment for us, right? And here we are, you know, years and years later. We still can't get in a ship and go anywhere very far at all. What I saw, I think, has the capabilities of doing all those kind of things. And so that's why in my heart, I don't think it's from here. I think it might have been here for a long time, but I don't think it's from here. And I think it has the capability of maybe going somewhere else. Right after we had the sighting and we came back to the house after running our appointment because we wanted to tell my wife what we had seen. So we told her what we saw, and she was really jealous because she said, "Man, you get to see all the crazy stuff. I just wish," because she's always wanted to see a Bigfoot or something extraterrestrial, a spacecraft. She's always wanted to see something like that, and here I get to see this, and she couldn't see it. So she was really jealous of that, and she wanted to go right back down there instantly where it happened. So we did. We jumped in the car. Cody, myself, my wife went down there with machetes, cut our way in looking for tracks, which we couldn't find anything, but she was right on it, right in there with us going in, and she's been really curious about it since day one. She has no problem with believing what I saw. She can tell, she knows me for so many years. She knows when I tell her something, that's what I saw. And so she was really jealous that she couldn't see it too.
I mean, who wouldn't? That was way too stunning of a thing to not mention to anybody else. But as I caught myself telling people that, it was what you would expect if you were to tell something to someone that was absolutely amazing and unreal. They just go, yeah, that can't be real. That had to be some other explanation as to why you saw what you think you saw versus what it actually was. And all I have really in my inner circle is my family. Got my 2 kids, and I told my wife right away, and she just went, "Oh yeah, you know, that's cool." And I'm just like, "What do you mean? I don't think you understand the full grasp and scope of what it was that we witnessed on that day." Yeah. And you just can't. There's no way to convey that feeling, emotion, and wonder if you just weren't there.
I'm very selective about who I tell the story to, because, you know, there's going to be a lot of people that think you're crazy and all this, and you know, I'm just not worried about that. You know, at first I didn't want to tell a lot of people because I was kind of worried about it, and my wife was worried about it. People are going to think you're crazy. But the more you think about it, I know what I saw. I have somebody else that saw the same thing with me to back it up. And, you know, you can't be afraid to tell people what you saw. If you're afraid to tell people what you saw, nobody's ever going to know anything about what we saw. So you have to come forward. And I'm hoping that I'm going to release some hard feelings for some people that might have saw the same thing that were alone, that have bad thoughts about it, that try to block it out of their mind like they didn't see it and get second guessing themselves. This might help them. And we can't be the only ones that have seen something like this. Somebody had to have seen. We can't be the first ones. I mean, it's possible, but I doubt it. I think other people have seen it, probably haven't come forward. And we are coming forward. And that's exactly what we saw. I'd tell them to come forward. I think if everybody came forward, we'd have a better idea of what this is. I mean, if everybody came forward and said what they saw, and you put down a record of it, you might be able to figure out like where they're getting their energy. Like we happened to see this one right underneath the main power supply. Somebody else might have saw the same thing we saw, and then they'll go back and they'll say, "Hey, you know what? There was a power supply right above where I saw this one too." And then you can start putting clues together of how it gets its energy. How does it travel? How does it change into other things? So the more people that come forward, the better off I think we'll be.
If you believe that you saw something and it was unexplainable to the point where you didn't feel comfortable explaining it to other people, I think it would be a great relief on your conscience to just talk about it. Because it's just like anything else you try to hold in. It's going to eat you up inside, it's going to take you over, and it's all you're going to think about. If you could just convey that to somebody else and get them to understand that it's not too crazy to think that something you can't explain actually exists.
You call up Brett, for instance. If somebody sees something out there, you don't want to tell your neighbors, you know, they'll think you're crazy. Call up Brett. He was totally confidential with me. I felt really comfortable talking to him about it. He obviously knows a lot about it. He's been doing this a long time. And I didn't just go do this documentary. He didn't just call me up and I went and did it. I investigated him before I told him yes. I went and looked at some of the films he's already made. I had my family look at him. I had him rent them on Amazon. And they thought he did a professional, knocked out job. They were all against me doing it at first, but once they got to know Brett's form of work and how he puts that across, they thought it would be actually a good idea for me to come forward and do this. And that's pretty much how it happened. So I would tell everybody to give Brett a call. Real quickly, after this happened, I called up that night. My wife and I talked about it, and she said, you know what, let's call up somebody and see if they saw anything like you've seen. Let's not call anybody around here. Let's call somebody that does Bigfoot stuff. So we looked online and we found this Bigfoot researcher in Oregon that's been doing it for 25 years. I called him up and told him my story. And I felt better. I felt a lot better after I talked to him, because he explained to me that other people have seen similar things, not quite what we have seen, but they have seen very strange things. So don't feel that bad that you have seen something like that. Don't let it second guess you. I said, well, I had somebody with me. And he said, oh, you had 2 people that saw it. Well, that's even better. And so we let him know. And basically he wanted to do an interview and come here and do some stuff too. And I told him no, because he just wasn't, I wasn't really into it then. I didn't know if I wanted to do it. But once I did the research on Brett and the movies he's already done and how professional they were, that's what made up our opinion to do it. That's what made our opinion that we are going to do it no matter what. And so now we'll see what happens. We'll see if people think I'm crazy or not. How I met Jose, the man that's doing the painting, is we were taking a break in Bandon from our job about lunchtime, and we always go to one spot, particular spot, overlooking the ocean. And so we drove out there, and here's this guy standing there doing a painting. And it's kind of a famous place. It's Beach Loop in Bandon. And I really liked that place, so I got out and started looking at his painting. And I admired his painting. I wanted to buy his painting. And he said, well, no, I don't sell paintings. I've never sold a painting. So I kept talking to him some more, and pretty soon he said, all right, I guess I'll sell it to you, but I have to finish it first. So that's how I met him. Cody was right there and saw the painting too. It's a really nice painting. So I got to know him a little bit. I went over to pick up the painting after it was done and mentioned to him about my sighting. I didn't want to mention to him right away. I already had the thought in my mind of having this painted, so I'd have something to show people, because a painting's worth 1,000 words, a picture. So I started talking to him about it, and boy, we hit it off great. It ends up that he's had his own experience, that he already draws Bigfoot. He showed me a bunch of drawings of Bigfoot that he'd already done in the past. So I liked that idea, and he just jumped right on board and said he'd love to do it. And so he came out to the site where we actually saw what we saw. He took pictures, interviewed both of us, wrote down everything we said, and then started working on this painting. And I went there once about 10 days ago. It wasn't finished at all, and had to do 4 or 5 changes to it. I talked to Cody about it. I showed Cody how it had progressed, the painting, and Cody said that, well, this needs to be changed too, and we both agreed on that. So now he's making the changes, and we haven't seen the painting at this point finished yet, but I guess we're going to see it today. So I can't wait to get the painting, because when I saw it, it was very realistic to what I saw. I was afraid that he wouldn't be able to put on paper with paint what we saw. I was worried about that, because if it's not what we saw, I don't want to have the painting. I'm not going to show it to anybody and say it's what we saw unless it's very, very correct in what we saw. And what I saw on a rough forum was very 95% of what we saw. So that's the story on how I met Jose, and Cody and I met Jose, the painter.
Before all the editing has been done, I've seen Jose's first rough draft. Let's call it a rough draft, I guess, because there was a lot of stages to probably completing it. But I've kept it to my mental image of what it was that I saw. I'm trying to just keep it locked in there. I don't want to be, you know, confused or be like, maybe that's what it was, because I know that if I just keep it in my head and use that as my frame of reference, I'll never forget what it was that it actually appeared before us that day.
I've been a lot more aware of myself. I've been watching all the shows on it now that I didn't do before. I'm watching every one. I mean, the series that come on, because I'm just waiting to see if somebody has a picture of what I saw. Because now I'm really interested in it. I wasn't that interested before, but now I'm definitely interested because I saw something that was totally amazing, and I want to know more about it. And that's where I'm at. I don't know about Cody.
I would have to say from this experience, how I go about my day-to-day now is I take a little bit of a closer look as I'm driving by heavily wooded areas.
Yep, so
a
do
place
I.
you wouldn't think about looking before, really hard and long at, because you never know. There are tons of things out there that could be hiding right behind you and you would never even know it was there. Or it could be in front of you and you wouldn't even know.
Same thing here. I find myself looking in more spots now than I did before. I probably always will.
As weird as it is, it's just been that from that day forward, and then it's just gone back to what you would call a normal day, day to day.
Yep, I haven't had any weird experiences since that day. I haven't seen anything, heard anything, had any weird experiences or anything. I got down like this on the ground, just like this, and started looking around for hair, for a piece of hair, an orange hair, dark hair, from it turning from one thing to another. And I couldn't find one piece of hair that it lost during that transition.
When we first saw it, and I was able to look up at the dash and be able to see what Harold had called out was in the road, there was this tall, bright orange. It was so hard to tell if this creature was made of fur, if it was emanating its own type of light source, but it was halfway up that pole, at least 9 to 10 feet tall. And we came around the corner. When I saw it, it was slightly humanoid. I did see a gorilla feature, ape feature, however you want to describe that to yourself. Bright orange, an unnatural orange, an orange where the sun would hit it, but it was still brighter than any other object around in the area. And this is all in a matter of 8 to 10 seconds that we watched this thing. From the road to us stopping here and looking out over the creek to see if we can spot this creature that had just vanished over the bushes.
At 10:15, it was directly behind us, and the sun was right on this road. I mean, this was lit up bright, you know, bright. But the part that amazed me was when it levitated, when it turned into that geometric square. Was it geometric to you, Cody? What did you see?
In the beginning, it was soft. It almost didn't have how we have, how there's a line where something begins and ends. It was almost like it was soft, and it was either had very fine fibrous hair and or emitting some type of energy that it produces, whatever this creature was. And that's when we knew that this couldn't have been an elk. Our first call out was an elk because that's all we could think of an animal in this area that's native to the region that would be that tall. But as we came around that corner and saw what we finally saw, we knew that once that object had taken over the bushes, that it was nothing that we have ever seen before in our lives.
Feels kind of strange to be standing right here looking right at the spot, but I drive by this spot every day, and every time I come down this road, I look over here. I look in a lot of places now I didn't look before, just hoping to maybe see something like that again. It was amazing. It was unbelievable.
I have my hopes that one day that it might reappear back in this spot, but the odds of that happening, as with every other encounter, once you've seen it somewhere, you're never gonna see it in that same spot. So it is quite amazing actually that we were able to time everything just right, that we had the best view of this Bigfoot type creature doing all of its transformation and probably its hidden special talent right in front of us. It was able to do things that you couldn't even imagine, which is why we were trying to explain everything that we can in the greatest detail we were able to.